Welcome to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast, the show that offers you tips and strategies to help speakers build the business of their dreams. Now here's your host, 30-year industry veteran and business coach, Jane Atkinson.
Well, welcome everyone to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. Today we are talking about longevity in the speaking business. Do you have a 20 or 30 or more year career ahead of you? Maybe you're already in the middle of one. How do you shift and evolve with the times? Well, there's nobody better to talk to you about that than my former client and friend, Michelle Ray. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Jane. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here, and I have watched your business just absolutely soar over the years. Apologies it took so long to have you on the podcast, but I love how that came about. Tell everybody about your current business model.
Sure. Well, my business model comprises, of course, of keynotes, workshops, working with clients on more long-term projects,
Mm-hmm.
leadership development specifically. That often will come as a result of keynotes and some of my own efforts, which I'm going to talk about my own efforts, of course, which I'm going to talk about during our time together. Uh, so really that leadership development, a lot of it is actually happening virtually.
Mm.
And that's been very exciting because I now can look back on 2020, 2021 as a huge gift.
Mm-hmm, exactly. I think we talked in the middle of, I feel like we might have talked in the middle of COVID, and being able to switch to virtual was
Mm.
such, like you said, such a gift. Um, t Tell us what you feel looking back on your, how many year career?
30. This year is 30.
30-year career. What do you think the number one focus for a speaker should be?
Well, this came right from you, Jane. The very first time I met you, and you talked about getting good on that platform.
Mm,
I mean, obviously, you need to have guts, you need to be uh, willing to put in the work. I'd say that goes hand in hand. But
mhm.
really, you said it's all about that platform because it's the best form of marketing that you can ever have. And
It really is.
that has not changed. And that has been even more relevant for me in the last couple of years.
Mm. So, what are some of the things you've done to sharpen that saw?
Well, you know the old saying, the more you speak, the more you speak. Uh,
Yes, of course.
but really, I'm the kind of person that has never ever stopped investing in my business.
Yes.
And I don't know how you can grow a speaking business without doing that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I remember the very first time I put on my own public seminar. I actually did that in Australia many years ago, well over 20, 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, yeah, it was 25 years ago.
That's pretty
And
cool.
yeah, and I went to the Royal Bank and I borrowed $10,000. And it wasn't hard to do. It wasn't hard to get a line of credit. Uh,
Okay.
and that was incredible. And at that time, I broke even, which
So
was what,
you put on your own, you kind of ran your own showcase, would you call it? It was a showcase for who you are and what you offer?
well, it was a public seminar, and
Oh,
I learned all of that from my first foray into speaking, which was through a big public seminar company, like some of the,
right.
big name speakers that we all know who they are, and
Right.
they started off that way. But
Right.
really, I mean, working with people like Patricia Fripp,
Mm-hmm.
in 2005, I went to San Francisco and
I
I worked.
remember this.
Now, how many people do you know who can sit at her computer with her right next to you, and every 2 seconds she is turning off the video that she's watching of me to give
Yeah.
me feedback, and you have to be able to handle that.
Oh my gosh. I just want to commend you on that because I think it's the most painful thing to watch yourself in just by yourself. I don't love to listen to my own podcast. I know I should do it more often. I think people would probably say I say love too much and they might turn it into a drinking game or something, but whatever. I think watching or listening to yourself is so, so important.
Hmm.
And so watching the game tapes and having a coach sit there and critique and Fripp, oh my gosh, she just says it like it is. There's no sugarcoating, and she's utterly brilliant at
Hmm.
her analysis. And so, how much did that level up your game?
It was huge. It was unforgettable. It was like 11 hours with her. It was incredible. I love the way that she quoted her fee, but maybe I should keep that to myself. Um,
Okay.
it was so clever. It was so, so clever. But
Wow.
the thing that was the most, that was incredible watching, getting her feedback. That went on for quite a few hours, but I was up for it. I knew what it was going to be like. And I had a lot of video, and I've always had a lot of video. The most incredible part of that experience was in the afternoon, sitting in her parlor, and she and I started talking about stories. And then she started asking me questions about my background, my family. I'll
Family.
never
Yes.
forget what she said. She said, "Oh, this is so much more interesting." Some of the other stories you were sharing, I
Yes.
never forgot that, Jane.
Yeah. And you took that to the stage, and it's where sometimes you have to really dig deep to figure out what's really going to connect with an audience. Give us an example of a story that people comment on over and over. And you don't have to give us the whole, just give us the
No.
gist story.
Well, it's one that you actually are familiar with because in 2020 I did a keynote on resilience for CAPS
Mm.
virtually, and it was divinely inspired because it was all about my family. So
Hmm.
there's a story about well, obviously about my parents because they have an incredible story of resilience and survival, but the way that I can adapt that story. So what would be an example of that? If I'm speaking to financial clients,
Okay.
my father was a risk taker extraordinaire. So
Yes.
when I put a photo of him on the screen in his robe, unemployed, in our living room, and talk about his experiences and how he took so many risks and lost everything, I don't know how many times. And
Mm.
I'd say things like, "I wish you could have been there to help him."
Yeah.
And then another example was working with the United States Patent and Trade Office. My father patented a product, and I had newspaper clippings of him at this gala event, being in Melbourne, Australia, in the late 50s, believe it or not, with my mum, and I could tell that story about how successful he was with that product. And it was just so relatable because
Mm.
they're making those decisions all the time. So
Love
it's the
that.
adaptability, healthcare, my mother's dementia, everything. You
Wow.
can bring it all in, and people totally
Yeah.
relate to that.
Yeah. And the financial advisors, I wish
Yeah.
you were there to help my dad at his darkest time. I mean, that is something that's very meaningful for people and they can definitely connect with. All right,
Yes.
let's talk big picture about your brand, the evolution of your brand, and why you think brand clarity matters so much.
Oh, I mean, if people don't get what you do straight away, it's really hard to put yourself out there or sell yourself.
For sure. And can we just say that you, as a former seminar company leader,
Yes.
seminar leader for a seminar company,
Mm.
that you could have spoken on what, 20 topics? That is
Yes.
such a industry pitfall, I think, coming out of that a lot of people have a hard time choosing. But you did.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it has been an evolution, and landing on the current one, it starts with you.
Mm.
has been really great.
Oh,
And
that's beautiful.
yeah, I mean, it has so much applicability, Jane. You know, I've done more than 20, 25 events in the safety world, for example. So
Oh.
safety leadership starts with you. Leadership starts with you. Change starts with you.
Mm.
Transformation starts with you. You can go in so many different directions. But it started off a little bit of a funny anecdote. I don't know what I was thinking, but you
Mhm.
know, at one point I was the attitude speaker. At one point
Yes.
before that, I was, oh my God, I was the negativity expert.
Okay.
And I remember, you know, asking a bureau what they thought of that and starting that particular bureau relationship. And the person said to me, you know, I don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah,
I
let's
don't think
spin
I
this
could.
a different direction, shall we?
Yes.
Yeah.
But really lead yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
Also want to give kudos to Sam Horn,
Mm.
because she kind of found this somewhere buried in my copy. And when I was writing my first book, and there've been many people who've taken the title, Lead Yourself First, because you can't copyright a book title, but
Right.
you can't use the subtitle, etc. Anyway, and it's kind of morphed from there because that really made a lot of sense for people. You can't lead other people until you know how to lead yourself. Lead
Mm.
yourself first is definitely lessons that I keep learning. I'm not done with that lesson.
Mm. And props to Sam Horn, who is a book expert, by the way, an amazing author herself, but also a coach on books. And I really appreciate that you have kind of cherry picked your coaches very strategically and done it really over a long period of time. I think investing in yourself
Yep.
is something that is so, so helpful. I just got off the phone with a prospect from my mastermind, and he had a lot of voices in his ear all
Mm-hmm.
at once. And that's not necessarily helpful. You really need to follow one recipe. And I think you've done that quite nicely, whereas you haven't had, five coaches at the same time. You hire somebody 6 months and then have a break for 6 months, hire somebody else. Like you've spaced it out in a way that has probably been very, very helpful for you.
Yeah. And I mean, I flew at that time, she was living in Washington, D.C., and I spent a whole weekend with her again, and it was
Mm.
incredibly intense. But it was
Yes.
so amazing the way that we came up with the branding and the chapters and the unique, like I've got a chapter in my first book called, I never would have thought of it, the piano at the bottom of Sydney Harbour, which is
Ah,
actually a true story about a piano
yes.
at the bottom of Sydney. Of course, it would be true. It's too long to get to it, but you can read the book. It's really funny, but it
Yes.
wasn't funny at the time. But it's like, how do you deal with that kind of, disappointment of, when things are sinking anyway? But it was just so much fun and so brilliant. And just want to also mention Joe Calloway.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Joe was in my life for quite a while on a regular basis with my
Yes.
keynotes, and I wouldn't hesitate to talk to him about what I was doing and what I was prepping for. And just amazing to get insights from someone else. As we know,
Hmm.
this can be a really lonely business. And I like
Yes.
to bounce ideas off people, and I still do it with Joe sometimes.
And it's so nice to be able to say, I'm thinking this or this. Can you give
Mm,
me some feedback, some input? It just makes your decision-making process that much more, I guess, easier. Because sometimes you can get caught up in overload and just spin around in circles for a period of
yeah,
time,
that's for
which is
sure.
overthink things. Okay. Let's transition on to fees and value. This is something that you really think a lot about. You think deeply about
I
this.
do.
What say you for other speakers around this?
Well, I really think that for me, I stand in my value. And I think after 30 years, I should.
A
Um,
hundred. Yes. Were you
100%.
always there?
What was that, Jane?
Were you always there?
No, probably not. But it's become something I'm very passionate about. And I think that when you have a lot of miles in and you've come to a certain fee level and that number comes out of your mouth, it's just so important. And people who understand what that means, they're not gonna question it. And of
Yes.
course, they can question it when you're too low, and
Mhm.
they're surprised. But yeah, I would love to see that with more people, especially people that have been around for a long time. And everything
Mhm.
you do should reflect that.
Yeah. And I think sometimes Canadian speakers can also have a little bit of a fee hesitancy. And you live in Canada now. You emigrated from Australia. And
Hmm.
okay, so let's talk about this a little bit because I think it's interesting to think about the mindset. If you were to say in Australia what your fee is right now, one that you might charge to an American company or a Canadian company, they would go gulp. And because Australia is notorious for low fees. And I really do still believe that it's a
Hmm.
mindset thing. Could you get paid your full fee in Australia tomorrow? Do you think?
If one of the clients flies me over for as an international speaker,
Yeah.
probably.
Yes.
Depends on the client, the agency, if there's a bureau involved. Uh, that in that situation, yes, because I've been asked and then I tell them and they go, okay. But if I was spending a considerable or time there, it
Yes.
is different. And I know that already. And if I want to go home and I've got other reasons for being there,
You
I'm
just
okay
book
with that. You
Yeah,
know?
just book a bunch of stuff and maybe speak like you're a local speaker.
Right.
So, but I do see a mentality shift that is required sometime to get up and out of your industry. I remember I went out to Vancouver actually, somewhere along Robson Street. I got trained in a tall building to become a coach. It was the Coaches Training Institute,
Yes.
and we had this beautiful view of the water all around in the mountains. It was the most amazing training I've ever been to. And I asked the leader of the training, "Well, how much do you charge an hour?" And he said $300 or something like that. And in my mind, I thought immediately, oh, well, I'm going to blow that away. I charged more than that probably in year one out of the gate, because I just had been surrounded by people who thought bigger.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot about who you surround yourself with. There's the whole tall poppy thing in Australia. Who do you think you are? Don't stand out too much, all of that type of stuff. I really want everybody to subscribe and stand tall to their value, to really be so clear on their value that it can come out of your mouth with zero hesitation. And you're there now. I love this.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, I do get definitely higher fees in the United States.
Hmm.
And again, I think there's an expectation with that. And when people see your whole package and they see your website and they see you're on big stages and everything else, then it's all logically going to make sense to them,
Mm.
given if they know what they're getting, right?
Yeah. And when you invest, you're probably not doing your website yourself. You're
No.
probably not trying to edit a demo video yourself. You're paying really good people to do. I think you probably worked with Chris West at one point and spent
Oh,
some significant money to get a really solid demo video. The investment pays off. This is what takes you up the fee scale.
it does. It does. And look, sometimes and because of the pandemic, I learned how to dabble in video creation. I have to be really careful because it's so much fun. But
Yeah.
I can sort of I I can talk about video in a way that might really surprise you a little bit, Jane. Would you like me to?
Do tell.
Okay. Um, So one of the ways that I've kind of been evolving, and there's no doubt for me after this amount of time, and I don't apologize for it, I'm in a kind of a transitionary stage, but I've learned to harness champions. Who is championing for you? So I have about 6 champions who do all the talking for me. Now I'm happy to kind of share this. So when you have people advocating for you and you have
Mm-hmm.
a long-term relationship with clients, certain people, it's just unbelievable what can happen. So one example of this is one particular industry sector. It's government and it's an
Okay.
association, and they're international. And I have an 18-year relationship with them. And
Mm.
there's an individual in that association that I've had a relationship with for almost that amount of time.
Mm.
So that client's booked me over and over again. And from that association, I have generated to date probably about $200,000 worth of spin-off.
Love that.
Now, the what's changed is that, and it's still going. It kind of started in 2008, and
Mm-hmm.
when I first did a little bit for them, and then grew and grew, and then did the big conference, and then had a lot of spin-off from that. And I actually did a presentation on this for a CAPS chapter called "The Anatomy of a Client Relationship," and at that time it
Mm-hmm.
was a 10-year relationship. So imagine that you have a client that has all of these contacts and they send an email to 60 people,
Mm.
which just happened recently. And this
Love
is
that.
the same sort of, you know, sector. And part of that included a custom landing page with a custom video for the
Ah,
market that is all about them, and people will see the landing page. They might even recognize I've got photos of people from
yes.
different events. It's all about them, and they absolutely love the video. Um,
So you're
that's something.
customizing the video specifically for government workers, and that allows you to get really, really specific with your message. And what's your phrase that you use again? It starts with you, or what? Remind me again.
The entire thing that's on my website.
Well, I'm thinking more the lead-in phrase. Was it? It starts with you. I forget.
It starts with you. Leadership starts with you, or just it starts with you. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
And
I
and
love
that
that.
actually was right there on the front. I mean, I've
Mm,
got an amazing team that can design these pages, but they're very specific, and it's just one example. So she and I wrote the blurb together. I'm going to
yes.
be working with her again in June in
Mm.
Washington State. And then that video, that landing page and the email, she sent it to 60 contacts. So I'm still working through them, but I just think that this is such an easier way. You
It
know,
really.
look at Talkadot, all the referrals.
Hmm.
And it's gold.
It's
And
really golden. So let's ask our listeners to be thinking about who are a half a dozen people who you could really build your relationship with and who could potentially be your cheerleaders for the industry. And going deep into an industry, there's just nothing like it. Those people who have seen you, who work within the government, have seen you over and over again. They know who you are. When they think about leadership, they probably think of you first. How powerful is that?
it's incredible, and I want to continue to build those advocates, because if you just don't need that many. It depends how much business you want.
Hmm.
But honestly, Jane, I know, to go after gigs where you have no clue whether there's money, uh,
Hmm.
it's hard. And
Yes.
I've done that too, and there are times where I still will, but I really think that the advocates are amazing, and I'm really enjoying that right now. And it keeps giving.
I
Keep.
enjoy that so much. And I love a good customized page. Michelle Ray /government makes so much sense. Um, you have then at least a two-part strategy. Part one is spin-off. You've talked about how so many engagements have come from just being good on the platform. And that one engagement could lead to, like you said, a couple $100,000 worth of business. But the second thing is the champion idea and having somebody in the industry be kind of your spokesperson, because isn't it powerful when someone else sings your praises?
It's amazing, and this still blows my mind today. So I did a really amazing event in March in the US,
Mm-hmm.
and they said, we want three names of people that we can talk to in and ideally in this sector.
Mm.
So I immediately thought of one in particular, and I had a photo of me with this person from last summer on my phone. And the reason I'm mentioning this to you is because we had texted each other. And this
Yes.
was the CEO of this particular sector and I said, listen, and he immediately, almost immediately got back to me and I said, would you be willing to talk to these people? But if I didn't have that photo on my phone and it was a great event. I mean, imagine that, like from that photo, from that text in my head, I immediately thought of him and he really helped me. And then he said, oh yeah, and by the way, when she came to work, do our sessions, everybody got a
Yes.
book. Everybody got a book.
Everybody got a book. Oh, so that's a part of your strategy these days, maybe to build books into every speech.
When I can, absolutely. And
Mhm.
my latest book, Leading in Real Time, and I would like to mention this for people, when you write a book, I mean, obviously you have to want to write a book and be passionate about that topic.
Yes.
So when I was starting my most recent book in 2020, obviously all of a sudden I had a lot of time on my hands. But just before that, I contacted a client. One of my champions had told me about this person. It was a former client, and I'd already worked with this organization twice. And I said in February 2020, I am currently writing my next leadership book, and I'd like to tell you what I've got in mind.
Hmm.
18 months from now, which was September 2021, I want to be on your stage and I want the world premiere of my book to be on your stage. And 1,500 people you say are going to be there, and everybody's going to have that book in their hands. And Jane,
Mm.
I didn't know the title yet, but I manifested that,
The
and
vision.
it happened. That's exactly what happened.
That is the coolest thing. I love even some hotel chairs even have a place for you to put the book underneath the chair. I think that there's nothing better you can say to the client. And then after everybody gets their books, I'm going to go off in the corner over here during a break and we're going to do a big autograph session, not a book signing, an autograph session, because that's a nice way to raise your level of celebrity with the audience. And I just think that people who are trying to sell one book at a time could be selling 400 books at a time, 1,500 books at a time, just by focusing on getting booked more and by building that into their process. And the way that might look, well, you can tell me what your process is. You send out an agreement, you send out a book. And it could be that you need to overnight the book because the agreement is electronic, but make sure that they have the book with a letter that talks something about volume discounts. What's your process for getting the book in every audience member's hand?
Well, it's usually sometimes they'll ask, or they've already been looking around and they'll ask about that. But I'll suggest it,
Mhm.
and they love the idea. And obviously, the more quantity, the more beneficial it's going to be for them and probably for me.
Hmm. For sure. And a
Yeah,
great question to ask is, okay, well, how long do we want this message to live for?
that's right.
Let's have the book and that'll further reinforce. And then I could actually come back and do my leadership training and you have something else in store for them. What
Mm,
would be a follow-on? Let's say you have your perfect client,
yes.
1,500 person audience, everybody gets a book. let's say it's the same company, it's not an association. What would then be the perfect next step in your world? Would it be that they sign on for a year of your leadership training and all of that is virtual? What might it look like?
Along those lines, Jane,
Hmm.
because when you know that you've already got that rapport, and it's interesting how people can come up to you and say, I want to know more, because I passionately believe that we've got to go beyond the keynote.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's so much opportunity beyond the keynote. So,
Yes, 100%.
and one thing I want to add to that is when you're having your pre-event call, and this is something I realized, there to really be listening and asking questions about, what have you done so far about leadership development? And I had an example of that with one client where Jane, it took 2 years for this deal to close.
Mm.
But I stuck with it, and through different executive directors,
Yeah.
one retired, but they were already in that mindset of we've got to give our people more. And
Yes.
it took a long time, but it actually happened, and it was wonderful to work with that client because, I remembered what they told me, copious notes, and how I could help them with what that pain was on a
Right.
deeper level.
Yeah. But they needed to give their members more.
Yeah.
Well, that is beautiful. Okay. Final question. If you were to circle back to you as a young budding speaker, uh, what would be the advice that you needed to hear back then that you know now?
Oh my gosh. I think I would say there's got to be, finding one answer is hard, but I think believing in yourself and being authentic
Hmm.
or approach. It's hard at the beginning, you're trying to find your identity too, even when you're on a stage. I don't think it just, for some people, just comes naturally to just be, comfortable. Uh,
Yes.
and so that would be one thing. And it takes, and having people supporting you. I
Takes a
think
village.
you can't do, I mean, this is a lonely, isolating business,
Hmm.
and having support, trying to do it all on your own, you don't have to. And some things it takes time, just focusing on a couple of things at a time. Because I
Yes.
feel like that. I want to do everything. I want my
Yes.
academy to be exactly the way I want it to be. And I'm still building that out.
Gotcha.
It's not where I want it to be, but I got to be kind to myself. Be
Yes.
kind to yourself.
Okay, that's a good final message. Okay, if people want to connect with you, what is your favorite social medium or how would you like them to do it? So website, LinkedIn, Instagram, where do you want them to find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. They
Okay.
can find me on all the social platforms, but I'm hanging out there, and they can.
Michelle Ray, R-A-Y. Very simple. And Michelle, thank you so much. You're on the road, traveling, busy all the time. I really appreciate you finding the time to come and share your wisdom with our Wealthy Speaker podcast listeners.
Thank you, Jane. It's such a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Mm. Well, with that, we're going to say see you soon, Wealthy Speakers. Bye for now, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. If you need help building the speaking business of your dreams, head over to wealthyspeakerschool.com and take advantage of our 20-minute next step call. Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast.